Take me back to Chrysler and your experience there and how you would sort of deal with something like this. I mean, we all know CEOs want certainty, and they seem to be willing to go along with California, or at least some of them. How would you view this at this point? Were you running one of these automakers?
Well, it's a great question. You know, back in 2007, 8, and 9, again, California kind of dictated what the emission standards would be as it would relate to miles per gallon, called the CAFE standards. And we took great exception to that California was kind of the tail wagging the dog. And they set what we thought at the time were pretty outrageous standards. And the rules would have imposed on us that you could only make a certain amount of trucks or large SUVs, and the rest of your fleet would have to be small and mini cars. And I tried to convey to the government that the customer determines what they're going to buy, not what we make available. So I saw it as a real hardship when California was imposing on the rest of the country what the fuel emissions and fuel standards would be. Now, every company has voluntarily done a tremendous job by putting in smart technology, electronic brakes, electronic accelerators, etc., to reduce the drag on the engine to get more fuel efficiency. So I think, you know, they've made tremendous progress, but to impose these unrealistic and high impact cost things on the automakers that are then passed on the consumer is just not the right thing to do.
So then, Bob, does the Trump administration have a point targeting California's authority here?
Well, I think they do. I mean, I think we should have one national standard that isn't dictated by one state as opposed to imposing that on the rest of the states. I think there should be a good meeting of the minds, come to the table and agree on what's appropriate using the best available technology, assuming there's going to be advances in technology. And I'm not suggesting we stay where we are. We should continue to improve gas mileage efficiency. But the thing is right now, with gas prices where they are, the U.S. consumer likes big. They like trucks, they like SUVs, and what would impose, you know, the whole society moving to a smaller, more efficient vehicle will be gas prices. So I think there's got to be a really effective compromise between the administration, the automakers in California, and get this arbitrary fight off the table.
Right. Well, as you know, Bob, the administration has proposed standards far below what the Obama administration had put in place, and California's are a bit below where the Obama administration was. But again, you got at least 4 or 5 of the major auto manufacturers are saying we'll just go with California because we think other states may follow. It's the largest single market for automobiles in the United States by far, and we'll just focus on that. You don't seem to think that's a good strategy.
No, I don't. I mean, even when the first CAFE standards came into play, there were off-ramps. We kind of knew at the time that while they set this, you know, very aggressive goal, that we may not have been able to reach it, and there were going to be off-ramps relative to how you calculated that fuel efficiency on your fleet relative to the size of the cars. Are trucks included, not included? Is there a separate standard for them? So I think there's still a lot of work to be had. I don't think we should let California not only dictate the fuel efficiency, but then they're really dictating the type of automobile that the U.S. consumer would be able to purchase.
Bob, change it up a bit for a minute here. The strike amongst GM workers, again, based on your experience, give me your sense here in terms of where you think this goes and whether they have a point.
Well, it's unfortunate. You know, many of the things that we had to do back in 07, 8, and 9, and I was fortunate to work with Ron Gettelfinger, who was the president of the UAW at the time, who was very thoughtful, forward-looking, and understood the realities of the environment we were in. So I think this is ill-timed for the UAW to take on General Motors now. If you look at it, General Motors has a pretty good inventory position. The dealers have a fairly good inventory position. If you think about what transpires now, in addition to the wages reduction, in addition to health care costs being picked up by the UAW, you know, my sense would be, hey, continue to talk, but continue to work. It seems to me financially, you know, the UAW workers would be better off. the union would be better off to continue to be they're at the table anyway. Why not continue to work in a cooperative way and hammer through these issues? We did it before without a strike. I think you could do it now. I think it's ill-timed. You're looking at the economy, car volume, the SAR, the seasonally adjusted rates coming down. You're getting into the holiday season. Consumers will, the employees, i.e. consumers, will be concerned. I just think it was ill-timed to do this at this time.
Just the flip side of that, Bob, ill-timed. I mean, the flip side of that is that we're in this incredibly tight labor market right now as well, right? So I just wonder from a worker standpoint, if not now, then when? And I guess off of that, how do you think the rest of not only the auto industry, but other manufacturing workers and at other companies are watching this unfold?
Well, I think a lot of the things that we put in place relative to having a temporary worker and temporary employee that will allow you to adjust much more quickly as opposed to rolling through the entire seniority list when you had to affect volume change, which is going on now. Second, we introduced a two-tier system where entry-level employees would be paid at a certain entry-level rate, and then they would be able to gradually move up to the existing rates. I think there were a lot of benefits on both sides that would encourage re-employment as opposed to exporting employment so that we could stay competitive here in the U.S., keep jobs here in the U.S., and I'd hate to see that deteriorate. I mean, let's not forget what we learned during that downturn and proactively try to see if there's areas we can improve upon it. I'm sure Mary and the GM team are working on that. It doesn't benefit either party to take a strike. I mean, it's easy to announce a strike or take it. It's always much more challenging to get both people back into the shop.